Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever and wherever you are. My name is Anna Rochelle, and we are going to start with Chapter 8, Day 1. We are going to talk about the volume of cylinders. And for today, you're not going to see a lot of notes. What you are going to see is a little bit of an experiment. So I'm going to give you some information. I need you to get these things. So ask mom, ask dad, ask somebody. Maybe you might find some of these things just laying around the house. So the first thing that you're going to need is just a ruler. And the second thing that you're going to need is any sort of coin, I'm going to use quarters just because I had a bunch of those, for parking meters and stuff. Although a lot of them have become a little bit more digitized, right? So you could use your credit card or debit card. So I just have a stack of coins. To be exact, I have $2.25 in coins. Okay, and the reason why we want these coins is because they kind of form a cylinder. If you don't have that amount in quarters, you could totally do whatever amount you have, but just make sure that they're the same exact coin. Okay, so go ahead and pause this video and take a minute to find these things. Just a ruler and some coins. However many you have is totally fine. Okay, so you should have paused the video and found some coins. If you didn't, this is not going to be as fun. Kind of won't have as much information. Anyway, so here's what we're going to do. First thing that we're going to do is we're going to kind of find like the middle point, so the diameter of your circle. And what you're going to do is, I find it easier to use centimeters than inches, just because of the metric system. We could do point whatever, 0.4, 0.3. It makes my life easier. So my quarter, when I measure it across, whoa, I'm gonna like hit myself. When I measure my quarter across, kind of like this, not that you can actually see what is happening with the information. It's about 2.4, I want to say 2.4 centimeters. So I'm going to record that information. I'm going to go ahead and share a whiteboard like I normally do. So here we are, Chapter 8, Day 1, volume of cylinders. Yes. Okay, sweet. So my quarter, and all coins will have a different diameter, but my diameter is 2.5 centimeters long. Okay. And then what we're also going to do is we're also going to take all of our quarters stacked up, one on top of the other, kind of like creating that cylinder. I'm sure that you could probably see a teeny tiny image of me. And we are going to measure how tall they are. So regardless of how many coins you have, you're just going to take them, kind of keep them in this format where they are. I'm going to go back and forth from sharing screen to not sharing screen. Stop share. So you just want to have them this high, and then you want to make sure that in your ruler, this piece down here, I don't have, whoops, see how there's no tick marks down here. The tick mark kind of starts where my nail is. I hope maybe you could see that, but maybe not. Maybe here you can. So we want to make sure that we're measuring the height of our stack of coins from the first tick mark. And so this is about 1.5 centimeters. Hopefully you were able to follow along. So my height of my stack of quarters is about 1.5 centimeters. So as we're looking at this, as we're looking at all of this information, we're really kind of thinking to ourselves like, hey, what do we really need? What information do we need? Now we know that the volume of all of these quarters is kind of like 1/4. like, the volume of one, but then like multiplied by however many quarters we have laying on top of each other, right? So if, for example, the volume of one of my quarters is like 2 cubic centimeters, I just made up that random number. We're going to take 2 cubic centimeters and add that and add that and add that every single time we add an additional quarter, right? So in this case, what's going to happen is we're going to find the volume of the first quarter, which is basically not just the volume. We're actually going to look for the area of that first quarter on the bottom. And then what we're going to do is we're going to multiply that by the height. So in case you were not following along, in case sometimes some things make sense in my brain and they don't out loud, we're going to take one quarter. We're going to actually find the area of that quarter. And then we're going to take a look at our stack of quarters, or again, whatever shape you have. We're going to make pretend like that's an actual quarter down there with my fancy pants art. And we're going to see like how many, what's our height, right? So like how many quarters we have. And really, we want to know just these two pieces of information, the area of the base of the shape, and then multiply that by the height, right? Because instead of just constantly adding the area of the shape of the base over and over and over again, what we could do is we could just add the height of the stack. So in my case, if my diameter is 2.5 centimeters, I'm going to grab a calculator really quickly. My radius should be half of that, right? Because we know that the radius is kind of like from the center of the circle to the edge of the circle. And then the diameter is the whole way through, passing through the radius. So half of 1.5 is actually 1.25 centimeters, right? And then what we're going to do is, in order to find the area of a circle, we know that the area of a circle is pi r squared. So I'm going to take this 1.25. I don't know if you guys have an iPhone, but I have one of those, and then there's the calculator on it. So I'm going to actually take pi and multiply that by 1.25 squared in order to find the area. And that's actually going to be 1.5625. And then we're going to multiply that by pi, which is some version of 3.14. But honestly, most calculators have that button. It looks like the pi button. So you could just multiply by 3.14, or you could just multiply by pi. When you hit the pi button, it's that your answer becomes a little bit more accurate. Okay. So I would strongly recommend doing that. And we're just gonna round to the nearest 10th. In my case, it's 4.90, so 4.9 is totally fine. So that means that the volume of all of my quarters right here is actually 4.9. Sorry, the area of my quarter is 4.9 centimeters. Okay. So the area of my quarter is 4.9 square centimeters. But remember, I don't have just one quarter, I have multiple quarters. And so my multiple quarters are going to be multiplied by 1.5 centimeters in their height. So in order to find the volume of my cylinder, that looks like a cylinder, right? I hope. We're going to take that area, that 4.90 or 4.9, and multiply it by the height of 1.5. And so when I do that, I can actually get 7.36. So basically 7.4 cubic centimeters is going to be the volume of my stack of quarters that is worth $2.25. So before we leave for the session, If you did not use quarters, that's totally fine. The idea is still the same. You're still going to find the area of the shape of the circle that you're finding, whether it's a nickel, a dime, penny, a shekel, any sort of coins. Okay. And then you're going to see how high they are. So you're going to go ahead and multiply that by the height. Because this is more of an experiment versus actual doing, I did want to go through and just share with you in the next slide the actual formula, because that is part of your notes. So in order to find the formula for the volume of a cylinder, I'll write it in. Oops. The volume of a cylinder. What you're going to do is you're going to find the area of the base. And now the area of the base in our case is the area of the circle, right? And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to multiply it by the height. I think I spelled height incorrectly in here, because I'm too excited. Now that also looks incorrect. Whatever, I'm over it. Okay. So it was right the first time. It totally was right the first time. Okay. We're going to multiply it by the height. The area of the base in our case for a circle is always going to be pi r squared, and the height will always be represented by the letter h. So when we multiply these two together, we could say that the volume of a cylinder is pi r squared h, or any version of that sort of multiplied together. In order to find the volume, you would multiply these three terms. In order to find one of these three terms, you would basically plug in all the information that you have and then solve for the missing variable. So let's say I was missing the height, for example, we could say that the volume that we have is 7.36. Or 7.4 is what we said for the quarters, right? And then pi is just pi. And then my radius I knew to be 1.25 squared. And let's say I didn't know the height. So I would go in and I would multiply all of this out. So I would do 1.25 squared, multiply that by pi, and I would end up with 7.4 equals 4.9 times h. And then in order to find the height, I would just divide both sides by 9. So, and then that would give me about 2.5. So when you're looking for a specific dimension, you can always fill in the spaces that you know, and then solve for the unknown, right? And that's going to work for even with volume as well. Fill in the things that you know, and then find the things that you don't know. I hope this was helpful in discovering how to find the volume of a cylinder. Go ahead and attempt some of the problems in your notes. And as always, ask if you have any questions. I will see you in the next video where we will discover something else. Bye.